We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. We're getting a little ahead of the game here. As I've told you before, I'm going to be on the road for a little bit with my wife, and I want to make sure I have podcast set up because I'm probably not going to be able to do it from a car or some cheap and shady hotel that my wife and I might stay in on the way down. So I thought I'd be safe and do these podcasts ahead of time. Now, today we have the good fortune to have Jace with us. Jace, our friend from Texas. It is Monday afternoon that we're recording this, but you won't hear it till Wednesday. So please forgive anything that's not up to date. But there's a lot of things going on and still plenty of things to talk about. And Jace, how things looking down in Austin, Texas today?
Eh, Texas is Texas. They're about to have that special session because Greg Abbott vetoed the THC bill, and Dan Patrick's still bitching about that. So, anytime Dan Patrick has a bad day, I go Abbott, make that bitch cry. So that's about
Let's
it. That's really what's going on in Texas. Just the
that's a
THC.
weird situation in Texas, isn't it? Dan Patrick was adamant about getting the THC bill get it done away with in Texas, but there's a lot of money behind it. So they catch Greg Abbott in a bad spot. Does he vote in favor of it or against it and appeal to Dan Patrick? And he did. You suggested he did what you didn't think he'd do. You thought he'd just ignore it because he didn't have the balls or the legs to stand on, so to speak. Um, but he vetoed it, and this pissed off Dan Patrick. Now Dan Patrick's in a tough situation because he's mad as hell that he vetoed it, but he doesn't want to be mad at his boss. So this guy must be just twisted in the wind.
Yeah, evidently there's a lot of MAGA, like I said before, let grandma die, take abortion rights away from women, but don't touch my marijuana.
Yeah,
So, I mean, a lot of people are pissed off, and Dan Patrick even said, well, I mean, if they want to vote me out, so be it. Well, he's up for re-election next year, so that'll be pretty interesting. And with, I don't know, this may be the thing to where the Republicans have too much overreach because I mean, there's something came out today. I was reading Drudge Report, and they said Wall Street Journal is. I know we all think we pretty much believe the House is going to flip, but now they're saying the Senate's in play. And I think you and Eric may have said that a few months ago, and I thought y'all were crazy, to tell you the truth.
yeah.
But what they're doing with this bill, what's going on down here in Texas, I mean, they may have a real shot at getting a Texas senator. I mean, we haven't really had one, God, I mean, since Lloyd Benson. And it's just a shame that Ted Cruz owns that seat, but it's Cornyn's seat that may be up because he's not very popular with MAGA. And so uh, Ken Paxton is going to try to primary him and get him out of there. But I think MAGA will like Paxton, but I'm not sure the rest of the state will because he ain't got a very. I mean, I think he's safe with MAGA, and MAGA may actually take down Cornyn, but I don't see Ken Paxton being able to win in Texas because I think, and especially with this marijuana thing going on. So if they go after Dan Patrick, they may take out Paxton and they may take out Cornyn. So that may be the break that, the Senate needs to, especially Texas, to get the Senate to flip. And boy, if the Democrats win the Senate and the House, oh boy, you talk about get your fucking popcorn ready. Woo!
No
That's going to be
shit.
a thing to watch.
Well, I think we're going to see maybe an exile from the Republican Party in Congress, possibly. And it started just the other day. Tom Tillis has been speaking out against this big, beautiful budget bill, and this is Monday. So I was hearing on Sunday he was spouting off pretty good about the budget bill. And of course, Donald Trump comes back and attacks him and says, we're going to primary you. We're going to primary you. And then, of course, Tom Tillis comes back and says, yeah, I'm not running again, which I thought was interesting because it gives him an opportunity to say whatever the fuck he wants from now until the end of his term. But I just heard something and kind of along the lines of Paxton running in Texas as a senator. I don't think he can win because he's a fucking goof. You know who's now thinking about running in place of Tom Tillis's seat? Uh, she is a native of North Carolina, and she happens to be Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump. She
Hmm.
wants to run in North Carolina. I don't know if she's actually going to. But again, when you put these Trump goofs up against relatively normal people, that's generally a good thing. The
Yes.
crazies don't usually beat normal people, even if it's a Democrat. So if Donald Trump wants to put up fucking Ken Paxton and Laura Trump, good on you because you're going to fucking lose.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking is going to happen in New York. If that guy that just ran that won that primary or whatever, that guy that thinks is the worst socialist since Bernie Sanders, they think if he runs in the general election, he won't win. So I don't know if I think the Democrats are moving. I mean, the Democrats are moving to the point to where they've gone. You've said this too, and there's a gentleman on, I forget his name, but he's on Joe Scarborough in the morning. He's a historian. I forget what his name. I think he actually did a speech for, he wrote Biden's acceptance speech. I forget the guy's name, but he was saying with this Trump
I
thing that
think
if
it's Beschlow or something like that.
no, he's a guy that's a historian, and he always talks about like Reagan and FDR and I forget his name, but
Okay, yeah, I know.
he was talking about, and you can see it on TikTok, to where we've gone so far to the right, like you said, that this may get AOC elected. So I don't know if the Democrats really have as much to fear with somebody in New York winning that as, South Carolina and also down here in Texas, because I think a lot of Republicans, I don't know about North Carolina, but I think a lot of them are, I mean, I think a lot of them are just, tired of this because I've even seen Republicans, like a Republican talk show host, talk about that's the problem with having one war. And this guy's his name's Michael Berry. He's pretty conservative. I used to listen to him before, but he was kind of the conservative that actually makes sense. I mean, there's a few of those around. But he was saying that's what happens when you have one party rule for so long. I mean, they sit there and they try to blame the Democrats. It's like, Trump blaming the Democrats, in Congress. I mean, it ain't the Democrats. They have all the power. They have all the cards.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you're cannibalistic and this shit's happening. And I think maybe they overreached with this marijuana thing. I mean, it would have been enough for me with school shootings and, grandma freezing to death when the power grid went out. But hey,
right.
if pot can do it, let pot do it. But we need somebody new. Beto's out there working. He doesn't need to run again. And Colin Allred, he had his chance. We got to get somebody better. And there's a guy that a farmer that's running against Abbott. He's gaining a lot of speed. I forget his name. I'll have it next time. But we need new blood in the Democratic Party. We don't need the same old candidates. So I'm hoping that, we got about a year and a half before the midterms. So I'm hoping, I mean, I'm optimistic, but Shell, I thought that Cruz was going to lose too. So what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, the historian you're talking about on MSNBC is a guy by the name of John Meacham, and he's a
Yes,
pretty
that's him. Yes.
respected guy. He knows his stuff, very learned, and I enjoy listening to him because, I think a lot of times, when people forget about history, and history is a very important thing in preparing for the future because there are trends and there are things that reoccur, and it happens all the time. You were talking about the guy in New York, this guy that they're trying to paint as ultra liberal, ultra left. Um, and they're going to try to run Adams, who's a crook, um, and Cuomo, who's a crook. And I don't know who they'll put up for a Republican. But I think the Democrats are going to be in for a surprise because the Democrats seem to be troubled by this guy in New York, this Mondami, because he seems too far left. And they've got in their minds that if we go too far left, we won't win. We've got to kind of be in the middle so we can appeal to the Republicans. If we have learned one lesson from November 5th, you can't appeal to the Republicans. Don't even try to get a Republican to switch sides. It won't work. What you've got to do is get all the Democrats on your side. You've got more people in the Democratic Party in this country. Get them all on board and fucking win. And while the moderates in the Democratic Party think it's not a win to go far left, like I've said before, you almost have to for as far right as we already are to just get it back to somewhere normal.
Well, that's what gets me about the Republicans is they're sitting here and they want to like throw up all these roadblocks about, how the Democrats are going this far left. I mean, what the fuck, man? I mean, they're going real far right on the Republican side, so they think it's okay and they'll
Yeah,
win shit. I mean, it's like, and it's like we can't have Donald Trump and the Republicans dominating and keeping the narrative about what to do with our party. We tried that with Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. That obviously bit her in the ass. We both were
yeah.
talking about Kamala. So, I mean, she really had nothing to lose to go that far. You know what I mean? But she was playing against, she was not up against the Republicans. She was also playing against a stacked media that wanted Trump up there because they like the shit show.
Mhm.
Well, I think a lot of people are getting tired of this shit show. I mean, case in point, like we mentioned last time, Trump's underwater here in Texas. I mean, my God, it took them fucking long enough. How long? Well, I mean, what did it take? I mean, God, I mean, I would, would think January 6th. I would think, taking documents that, that they would have hung anybody else for treason, not one who has those things now. But the Democrats, and I saw Hakeem Jeffries up there is like, well, we need to know where he stands. Well, motherfucker, we need to know where you stand too, because I haven't heard you talk about anything without Pelosi pulling your strings. Sorry. But the
Exactly.
gloves got to be fucking off, man. I mean, evidently the Democrats can't win by running a safe campaign by embracing Republicans, and they can't win a fucking campaign going to the left. Well, we tried the right thing and embracing, Republicans. We got to get that fucking shit done. I mean, the younger people that are coming out, I mean, a lot of them, didn't like the Dick Cheney and all that stuff, and maybe she was too close to Biden, which I'll never understand because I don't think that was a bad thing. But fuck it. What do we got to lose? I mean, hell, if we're going to lose either way, we might as well try something new.
I think with Kamala and Biden and being too close to Biden, I
Yeah.
think because of the sexism in this country, they just figured she was a figurehead and Biden was pulling the strings.
Yeah.
They didn't give her the credibility or the respect that she deserved when she was running for president. And the Democrats, look, one of the things I hate about politicians nowadays is that they're all pussy ass bitches. They all want to ride the fence. Well, I'm left, but I'm not too left.
Yeah.
Or some of the ones that are still kind of normal. I'm right, but I'm not as far right as MAGA. Look, you're either all in on one way or another. We are experiencing what it's like to go way right. So now that we've experienced what it's like to go way right, we should go the opposite direction. And instead of the Democrats saying, oh, they're way right, so they're bad, but we're kind of normal, we're kind of in the middle. No, that's not what it's going to be. Donald Trump has created a lot of problems. And in some respects, that's good for a Democrat because now they have the opportunity to tell people how they're going to fix those problems and what they're going to do. And that might be perceived as more left, but fuck it. People want relief from the pain that's being inflicted on them by the Republicans.
Yeah. And when they talk about left policies, it's about putting, the average Joe and the workers ahead of the billionaires. I'll never understand it, but it's like these people, I mean, they're about to take Medicare with this bill if they pass it. They're about to like, they're going to hit the red states the worst because I think the blue
Yeah.
states are a little bit more prepared, but the red states rely on that Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. I get them mixed up. But I mean, you're going to have a lot of people live on that. And if they don't, and if Republicans, I don't know what's going to take them, but it's like, I mean, they don't represent you. They don't represent you and me. I mean, they represent the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos. They represent the
Right.
billionaires. And those motherfuckers don't pay taxes as it is. But one motherfucker we
Yeah.
sure as hell do.
Yeah. We're the only ones that do,
Yes.
people middle class and below. And now they want to take more out of our pockets just to fund these people who don't need the money. I've been saying all along, I, I, I did a TikTok today on Monday, and I said, the Republicans are trying to pass this bill, trying to ram it through with every angle they have. And I'm trying to decide, are we better off stopping them if we can, or are we better off letting them fucking pass it? Because if they pass it, it is political suicide. People say, well, people will be in pain. Well, people are currently in pain and they're going to be in more pain. Are we better off letting them do what they got to do so they destroy themselves and get this over with quicker? Or do we try to temper this and hold them off so more people don't get hurt? And that's a hard question. I don't know. I mean, if I'm just thinking totally business wise, let's get the fucking mess over with and let's start cleaning up. But unfortunately, people are affected and people are hurt in the process. So it's a tough decision.
Well, people are going to die with this bill. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be the difference between living and dying for some people. But you got a party that doesn't care if women have to bleed out in their cars. You know, they all got offended that Kamala said that. Well, it's the fucking truth. I mean, it happens down here in Texas all the time. There's a case going
Yeah.
on right now that I guess there's a murder trial going on right now, but Texas is trying to once again try to make the baby a fetus. They're gonna he I guess put mifepristone in this his girlfriend's drink to
Yeah.
abort the baby. But so now they're wanting to make it recognize that baby as that fetus as a human being. So they're trying to push that. So they're always working on this shit in the background. They Republicans don't care unless it affects them or somebody they know. And a lot of times, somebody they know they don't care about, as long as it doesn't affect them personally. Because I've seen it. Because I mean, I've seen a lot of, regret over the Trump, what's going on with Trump, with, people's, fiancés or even parents getting, kicked out of the country. And now
Yeah.
they're trying to go after the birthright citizenship, just saying you're born here, you don't have any rights. But I saw something on TikTok that just, I'm not a parent, I don't have any kids. But I saw now that they're going against foster children. That, I mean, ripping them away from, these kids have already been through so much. And, a foster child can't hurt somebody. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to destroy I mean, everything about it. They're trying to get rid of, all the, like the next generation, almost like you got to slay the new breed of Jedi because they won't come back and bite your ass. It's just pure fucking evil, man. And it's just, and a lot of people are like, well, I have buyer's remorse. And I don't feel sorry for them. A lot of their family don't talk to them. There was an article in BuzzFeed I was reading about the parents saying, well, they don't talk to me anymore. And they were still fucking hunkering down on their thing. They can't understand why maybe their kid's gay or transgender and they vote for a freaking administration that wants to destroy that way of life. They don't understand how their kids are, they don't like that shit and how you can just vote for so much hate. It's like, well, I never expected them to do that. You never expect them to fucking pay attention and cut you out of your life. If you can fucking support that, I mean, I've done it too. I mean, I don't talk to most of my family for it, and it could be because they don't talk to me about it because, I voted for Biden. I did the evil thing of voting for a decent fucking man, and I voted for
Yeah.
Kamala. And I think, and I just love, and and I know I kind of, I kind of defend Biden a lot, but I even felt better about my voting. Yeah, they lost, but did you see them? They were like sitting there holding hands at that funeral for that Democratic lady that got killed. And that just tells me right there, he meant enough to her for her not to sell him out like the media wanted him to. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it may cost her the election, but she can sleep at night. And every
Yeah.
fucking thing she said about what's happening is happening. And people that voted for him that have buyer's remorse just because your kids don't talk to you, your family doesn't talk to you, I don't fucking feel sorry for you because we knew who he was. And like you said, it's one thing to vote for him in that first administration, but all the shit that happened while he was not president, January 6th, the documents, and you still vote for him, that's fucking on you.
That's definitely what's that old Herb Brooks thing? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's
Correct.
absolutely true. The thing people have to understand, especially the Trumplafucks, Donald Trump is basically suggesting immigrants shouldn't have rights, transgender, LGBTQ people shouldn't have rights. You have to understand, this is just the beginning. They
Yes.
don't want anybody to have rights other than them. And
Yep.
that doesn't matter if you're white, heterosexual, Christian, they don't care. If you're below a certain level economically, they don't want you to have rights. They
Yep.
want to dictate everything. They want to do everything. They want to get everything. And if you don't see that, you're fucking ignorant.
Yeah, there's just some people you can't reach. Like what was that song? What was that movie? Cool Hand Luke. There's just
Yeah.
some people you can't reach. We got a failure to communicate. I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't know what Cool Hand Luke is, go back and Google it and go check that movie out. It's one of Paul Newman's best. But it's true. I mean, it's you give all these. I mean, you provide all this evidence, and people they're either they just don't care or they're fine with it. And I think a lot of it's a second. I think people are fine with it as long as it doesn't happen to them. but it's happening to them. We're seeing it happen to them. We're seeing people being, that've been here in this country 30, 40 years. They just don't have the right paperwork. And they're arresting people that are here legally that are citizens. Like, and you said this is just the beginning. I read something to where they're actually going after some church groups. I don't know what it is, but yeah, these church groups think that, that they're safe because, they're Christian and Trump's a Christian. Well, that's bullshit. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, I mean, if you don't, and if you never read anything about Anne Frank, or there's a book I've talked about it before, it's called The Hiding Place. And it was about these Christians that, took in the Jews. Well, they were Christians, they weren't even Jews, and they were thrown into concentration camps. You don't think that shit can't happen? It's happened here with the Japanese during World War II. I mean, they
Yeah.
talk about, and it's funny how we don't hear about these camps anymore, these concentration camps as much because the truth got out there. But you don't think they're still not building that shit? Texas has given up a lot of land for that shit. They're going to call them prisons for migrants. But if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you get picked up, your ass is going to be in there with them. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, atheist, or Christian. I mean, if you're not on their list, you're fucked.
Have you heard this rumor going around TikTok? I don't even honestly know if it's true. In fact, I was just going to check AI to see if it's legit. But the story is, and every time I hear these on TikTok, I think it's always ends up getting hyped up and it's always kind of bullshit. But if it's not, fuck. That's um, people were talking about bodies washing up on shore in Spain
Hmm.
and they were shackled.
Wow.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna put this. And so the premise is they were putting some of these immigrants on some of those cargo planes, where the back door opens and you get
Oh, wow.
paratroopers jumping out. So people are putting this together that uh, there are shackled bodies going up on the ocean, up on a beach in Spain. Um, I'm just going to put this in here because I've heard the story. They say, yeah, you don't hear about it on mainstream media. Well, that could mean two things. That could mean they're trying to hide it or it's not real.
Hmm.
Let me just put this in real quick because
So they're flying, they're like flying them somewhere and they just open it up like wow.
that's the
I
premise and that's a
would that
suggestion.
would that surprise you though with this administration? Wouldn't surprise me.
That that's uh, that's the thing about it is the whole concept sounds fucking crazy, but we are so fucked up with the shit going on. You go,
That didn't surprise me.
it could be okay. This is what it says. I said, is it really true that bodies are shackled bodies are washing up on shore on Spain? Yes, unfortunately, there have been some reports of bodies, some with hands and feet bound, washing up on Spain's beaches, particularly in a couple of the resort areas. Authorities have launched a murder investigation. The circumstances suggest the deaths are not accidental. Well, of course, it's suspected that these individuals are migrants who are attempting to perilously cross from North Africa, possibly Algeria, and maybe being thrown overboard. So they could be immigrants. They may not be from here, but how fucked up are we where we hear a story like that and we think, shit, Donald Trump's loading them up on planes and dropping them off in the ocean, presumably in shark infested areas. It's I feel horrible that I hear a story like that and I don't immediately go, yeah, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. We know now that there are shackled bodies washing up on beaches. It's a matter where they came from. It's horrible no matter where they came from. But the fact that we have to consider that as maybe a possibility of something, the depths that Donald Trump would go and the Republican Party, we're
But
not
they've
sure
already
they won't.
but they've already talked about, I mean, especially the Stephen Millers of the world, how these people aren't human. They're
Right,
trash. I mean, it's exactly what they did with the slaves back then. That these people weren't white, so they weren't human. And
right.
everybody loves Abraham Lincoln, but he wanted to do this too. Is he wanted to them off in an island somewhere. He wanted to separate them too, because that's the way they were brought up to think. That's the way they were raised to think. And when they talked about, all men are created equal, they weren't talking about the slaves. And
No.
there's this point in there where if it came out tomorrow, there would be like a lot of people surprised that Trump was doing this, but it wouldn't fucking surprise me because nothing they do. And I hear this all the time. Well, we've never been here before. I mean, are you fucking not paying attention? They will do everything. And Mike, thanks a lot for putting it out there. Trump might get an idea to do this. Oh, that's a good fucking idea. I mean, these people, I mean, they say everything, they do everything in Christ's name. And if you read the Bible, Christ always says there will come many in my name and will deceive many. I mean, what's more than that than Christian nationalism right now that the white race is the best race? Hell, Jesus wasn't even white. But these
Yeah.
people, I mean, when you can convince, and I may offend people when I say this, but when you can convince people that two animals got on a big boat, you can convince people that a talking snake had somebody eat an apple, and when you can talk about virgin births, you can convince people of anything because they suspend all their knowledge for faith, and that's why these people are gullible. I'm not saying all of them, and that shit may have very well happened, but I mean, if they're up to believing stuff like that, I mean, you can piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. They'll believe that too. They're gullible.
Yeah.
That's why he loves the
I,
poorly educated. He said it himself.
Well, the thing about it with the Bible and the Constitution, I'd be okay with it if you stood by it completely. I mean, I think the Bible, I'm not a theologian. Um, some of the things make sense, some of the things don't make sense, like stoning a woman because she's an adulterer. That seems a little harsh. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem like something we would do today. So if that's kind of off, are these guidelines, are these parables that were given out just trying to give people some guidance? Is everything in the Bible fact based? No one can say it is. You can
No.
say, I believe, I have faith that it is. But the thing is, if you're a normal human being, you don't need the Bible to tell you how to behave.
No.
Do not steal. I think we know that inherently. Do not murder. We know that inherently. We don't need
Don't
the
fuck
Bible to remind us.
don't fuck your neighbor's wife. Duh. I
Yeah,
mean, come on. I mean, what else does it take? But yeah, I mean, they pick and choose what they want to out of it. Because don't you remember? I can remember that how Bill Clinton, when he got a blow job. Was that right? No, he broke
no,
the law because he lied under. Should have probably paid a better fine for that. But there's so many Christians just had a problem with like Bill Clinton and his affairs. All the women that he's supposed to hooked up with. I mean, you're the fucking president, man. You should have better than that, but that's still sexist, but you won't go there. But Trump gets away with it. I mean, Trump was 10 times the slut that Clinton was. But they're okay
absolutely.
with it because it's their guy, because it's got
Yeah,
an R next to his name. And even though Trump before was a Democrat. He went to he supported Pelosi, he supported, Schumer. He did all that shit. But when they found out, well, you can't win as a Democrat because they hated him in New York, but you can win as a Republican, that's when he says, okay, I'm a Republican. And when people call him, oh, he's a great conservative man, it's like fucking that guy's about as conservative as we are. He's about making money. He don't give a fuck about the Constitution. He don't try to preserve nothing. If anything, I don't remember conservatives being as when you talk about conservatives, they want to preserve things how they are, get them back to the old days. Fucking everything Trump does is anything but conservative. It's very, I mean, liberals are the ones that, a lot of times, fight for rights and try to make, new things happening. That's what Trump's doing. There is no way. And if you're a conservative, there ain't no way you're a fucking Trumper. But, everything's blurred nowadays. And what really got me was when we talked about him before, Dave Ramsey.
yeah.
So Dave
Don't like
Ramsey
that guy.
preaches
Arrogant
this
fuck.
well, he's just just like Trump. But that guy his whole time talks about how bad debt is. So who
Yeah.
does he fucking endorse? The king of debt and Trump. If that doesn't tell you enough right there, then you're not fucking paying attention.
Well, and here's an interesting thing. We were talking about the bill. Now, the bill, as the House put it out, the CBO said that would add $2.7 trillion to the debt, right? Or the deficit. I don't know which is
Yeah.
deficit or debt, but it's going to add $2.7 trillion. So now it's in the Senate. and they're fucking around with it. The parliamentarian is pulling this out. The parliamentarian is just ravaging that thing because there's so much that's illegal there. My question is, how does the House of Representatives, Republicans in the House, not know this shit is illegal? I mean, they're just trying to throw everything against the wall. Hopefully, something sticks. Hopefully, they can slip something through. But the CBO has come out now looking at the Senate bill, the way it stands now, the way they've cannibalized it and changed some things around. Guess what? The CBO is predicting now the debt would go up 3.3 trillion. It's fucking worse than what the House said, and that's hard to imagine that it could be possibly worse.
And aren't there like $900 million in cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, or whatever? And
900 to a trillion, yeah, it's
they
just
were
out
talking.
fucking rageous.
I'm old enough to remember, Mike, you probably are too, back when we thought the Senate would kind of, they wouldn't pass this stuff. Hell, they're doubling down on it. They're making it worse.
Yeah,
And you look at somebody like Rand Paul, he doesn't support it because it doesn't cut enough.
right.
And you had that girl, the Makowski from Alaska. Well, she cut a deal saying, well, if you don't fuck with Alaska that much, I'll vote for it. Sorry, you don't just represent Alaska, you represent America, the United States of America. And they kicked that out, saying that you just can't have one state, have that or whatever. She's probably a no. And her and Susan Collins are always the ones that, have a real problem with Kavanaugh and what he said. And they have a real problem with that, but they never fucking do anything about it. And everybody
No,
thought Murkowski was different. She was even talking about not running as a Democrat the next time. She's no fucking better than them because she sold America out for her own fucking state. You don't fucking
yeah,
sell the rest of the country out for one fucking state. I don't care if that's where you're from and that's who you represent. You represent the United States of America.
she should be decimated because, I thought, well,
Yes.
maybe she's kind of reasonable. And when I found out that she was going to do that, just as long as her state was fine, fuck her. She
She's
needs to go.
worse.
She needs to go. One of the things I've said about this bill, if it passes, there is an upside because it will be the end of the Republican Party because it will affect so many people. And as you've said, people are going to die. This is going to be attached to them for a long time. And I saw this quote from John Oliver, who's on TV, and he's
Yeah.
very good. He's British, I think, and um, but he said something that is exactly what I've been thinking, and he said it in a very articulate way. Now, I will warn you ahead of time that this is some pretty salty language, and I know that's rare on this show. So don't get too upset. Just bear with me. I'm quoting. I'm not saying it. And John Oliver said this: everyone who votes for this should be held accountable. Or to put it in terms that Louisiana GOP Senator John Kennedy would understand, if you're going to vote for this bill, you better French kiss it. Hell, you might as well put the whole cock in your mouth because you're going to be married to it for the rest of your fucking life. And
Yep.
and that's what they need to know. And it's hard for me to imagine they don't understand this. They're going to get what they want. They're going to please Donald Trump, assuming they pass this thing, but it fucks up their lives, their careers, and they're willing to sacrifice everything for a dumb fuck that's probably going to die with 3 Big Macs in his gullet on the floor of the fucking Oval Office. How stupid can you be?
Don't you remember there was a time when there was like, they used to be when they used to answer the switchboard in Congress.
Yeah.
Uh, if something happened, it was unpopular, they'd back down from it. Hell, they're doubling down now. They see the people are pissed off. They don't even Republicans don't like it, but they're doubling down on it because they're so afraid of Trump that they got to kiss his ass so much. A depreciating political asset. He's not running for president. I don't care what anybody says. He's not going to run a third term because, like you
No.
said, he'll probably choke on a couple Big Macs. But yeah, they're doubling down on it. They don't care. They have gone so far. I think they realize this may be one of their last chances of passing this, where they can please their billionaires, and their billionaires will still commute. They're in this for the money. They're not doing this for you or me or everything. Because even our buddy Elon Musk came out about it and said it's going to cripple like his business. And when you fucking lost Elon Musk as a billionaire, you got to think that other billionaires are acting like that too. But I mean, he's going to be affected about it. Well, it's about fucking time you woke up. Welcome to the resistance, Elon. I mean, goddamn, how long did it take you? But I read something where, like, you had that TikTok saying you thought it was over because you've been pretty quiet. But he's pretty pissed off right now, and that's the best thing that Democrats got going for him is that if he did interfere in that election where she didn't get any votes, he ain't going to be doing that next time for Republican. If anything, he'll stay out of it, and hopefully democracy can prevail this time.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting. The whole thing with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and them fighting, two narcissists burning down the fucking forest, scorching the earth, and people around them could see, you guys better settle down or you're going to fucking kill each other ultimately because of what you know about each other. And I said at the time, this isn't over. Narcissists never end. Somebody's got to have the last word. So
Yep.
Elon comes out and says his bill sucks. Donald Trump is just itching to say something back to Elon. I'm surprised he hasn't yet. Well, maybe by the time you hear this podcast, he may have said something. But inevitably, these two are going to go at it again. I just believe that wholeheartedly based on their personalities.
I think that, yeah, I think what we saw from Elon, somebody got to him or he came off his ketamine high or something. But when he starts losing even more money, I mean, yeah, he's going to do that, especially when if this bill doesn't pass, which everybody seems to think it's going to. It's a foregone conclusion because it's not so much they're doing their work. It's just the Republicans have no spine. I mean, if it was anything, they
Right.
would have a spine. But it can pass the Senate, but it's been changed so much. It's got to go back to the House, and the House it only won by
Right.
like what one vote, right?
Right.
So when it goes to the House and they reconcile it, do they have to go back to the Senate again? I mean, if it changes too much, or how does that work? I mean, we could
Well,
be
they
dealing with
they
this for a while.
well that's it. They got to agree to the bill. Both sides have to agree to the same bill. So the House presents it to the Senate. Senate's changed it. It's got to go
Yeah,
back to the House. The House either signs it or adjusts it to. Then it's got to go back to the Senate. Donald Trump wants this motherfucker wrapped up by July 4th. That's Friday.
yeah.
It ain't going to happen. I don't think. If it does, cool. But I just don't think there's enough time. These fuckers can't decide what to have for lunch, let alone on a bill, because you've got so much divisiveness in the Republican Party, and it's similar in the Democratic Party. But I just don't see how they get it done by July 4th. It just makes no fucking sense.
They may get it past the Senate, but the House isn't going to do it because I think there's even more division in the House. And I think
Yeah,
with the House that, but what did Harry Truman say? If you in Washington, if you want a friend, get a dog. So
yeah,
these Republicans are on it now. And you and Eric were talking about how those House deficit hawks, and I think we talked about like Chip Roy, all of a sudden they're okay with this, spending all this money. But when a Democrat did it, oh no, there's a problem. I mean, I hope people see that too, because it's like there are people out there that are conservatives, and I don't think any of them are in Congress, but they do care about, our budget and our deficit, which I've heard from people that it doesn't matter because you print all the money, you do whatever. I mean, we're never going to pay that off or whatever. But this is just a tool to fuck with, the Speaker of the House or whatever. But with Trump, all he has to do is say his little thing, and he even gets to chip Roy's into it, who actually was, fighting off against Trump. So that's why I don't think they stand for anything. I mean, and I don't know about the House. I'm thinking, the House is a little bit, closer because the Senate's got more of a majority, but the House, I mean, and they keep doing this, and I hope it keeps going on because each time this happens, it shows their incompetence the closer we get to the midterms. And I want this shit to stay out there. My thing, I hope they do a continuing resolution. If they can't by then, it could kick it all down the road and they can start arguing about it even more. Excuse me. Excuse me.
yeah. It would be better to have this come to pass closer to the election because people are stupid and they forget about stuff. It's
Yeah.
like what Mitch McConnell said. Just go ahead and do it. They'll get over it. I have a feeling with 16 million people getting off of health care, I heard somebody explain it. There is some give and take in this thing, and it really amounts to the people who are going to lose their health care may get a couple $100 in a tax break or something like that,
Oh
and they
boy.
think that they'll buy into that. Well, that's fine on paper, but when people start dying and people start not being able to get health care, it's going to change a fucking lot. And people are going to push back and be upset about it. Um, I think these people really, I think you're right. I think they're just looking for it for money because they can't be doing this for political reasons.
No.
It's just it's just not a win for political reasons in any stretch of the imagination. It is going to be suicide for these people to do it. And I think what we need to do, if it passes the Senate, even if the bill is not fully passed yet, anybody henceforth that votes for this bill, we need to list their names. We need to put that in the narrative and constantly control the narrative by saying, these people want to take away your Medicaid. They want to take away your Medicare. And, we were talking about Medicaid. Somebody asked me, does it affect Medicare too? Well, yeah, kind of it does. Because if you cut off the Medicaid, that basically funds a lot of hospitals in rural USA. And if there is no funding for those rural hospitals, they fucking close.
Yep.
And if they close and you still have Medicare, but you live in bumfuck Egypt, now you got to drive an hour, 2 hours, maybe more to deal with your health care. Yeah, that's going to affect people with Medicare and Social Security. And
And
if they take Medicaid, don't be surprised if the next time they try to take Medicare and Social Security. That's just how fucking Republicans do things.
and you could also get on the thing about that. Well, if they start closing a lot of those rural hospitals in MAGA country, more MAGA people are going to die.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people would say, well, that's what they get. And honestly, I mean, there's an old saying, so elections have consequences. And this was voted on by the American people, the majority, evidently. There's still questions to that, but you get what you pay for. And the majority of Congress, what do we always talk about how old they are? They know they're on their last few, everybody but Chuck Grassley is going to be here for 100 fucking 50 years, evidently. They
Yeah.
all know that they're, even the Lindsey Grahams and, they know that. But I had to give Schumer credit for making them read that stuff. And before, 30 years ago, you read a bill in the House. I mean, they would get like offended about what the bill had. Not fucking
Right.
anymore. They're doubling down on
No.
that shit. They know what's happening. A lot of it's got to be about the money, and a lot of it they know that they're not going to be in Congress probably the next term. Maybe they're expecting to be wiped out, and this is their last, cash grab. I mean, it wouldn't fucking surprise me.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get to a point when you know all is lost and you just kind of fucking do anything. You have
Yeah.
to wonder if that's not what they're realizing. Because presumably these politicians have been in politics for all these years. They know how things work, they know the trends and all this stuff. They've got to be looking at this. Donald Trump's polls are in the shitter. This bill that everybody's pushing has about 27% approval. If
Wow.
I'm a politician and I'm looking out for my career and I see a bill has 27% approval in this country, I'm not voting for that motherfucking thing, regardless if I'm Republican or Democrat. But they just do it. And the other thing is, it is a fear of Donald Trump. For fuck's sake, he's an old man who shits his pants, who chokes down Big Macs. He talks about primaries and stuff like that. Who fucking cares? Every time he comes up with somebody to primary somebody, they're so fucking crazy they lose anyway.
Yeah, and what gets me about it too is that, the people that, they just don't pay attention. They got their life going on. I get that. But I mean, a lot of people, especially down here in Texas, keep not so much voting Republican, they don't vote. And you got
Right.
all these marches, and I keep saying it, you can show up for a rally, but you got to put in the time to vote. You got to wait. I waited for 2 hours to vote for Hillary. Fucking didn't do any good, but I still voted for her. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta do it. A lot of people just don't care. And if this shit starts hitting where if, they pass this bill, like I said, do we want it to pass? I mean, I'm thinking that a lot of people are going to have to hurt for shit to get people's attention. And I think that's where we're at right now. I think that, we see it happening. We didn't vote for this shit. We don't support it, but we may have people ourselves, we may suffer too. Hell, I'm going into, I'm here. I see a lot of people my age going, well, goddamn, here I am thinking I could retire, but if this shit happens, I'm not going to be able to retire now. I mean, it's just more shit. that, like I said, a lot of people don't give a fuck until it touches them personally. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm okay with, the Republicans probably think, well, we took away Roe versus Wade for them, and we didn't really. I mean, we had one election where it fucked us, but they got over it, and that's what they're thinking. But you're not just talking about the women now with this, like you did with Roe versus Wade. You're going to be hitting the other side, the men now too, and that's going to be affecting them, and that may be their ass either to vote or not vote. And not voting is just as bad for Republicans as voting because they need every vote they can get.
Right. The Roe v. Wade thing, that really fucked me up. I mean, that threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
When that happened, I thought, well, at least nobody's going to vote for these motherfuckers. And we saw the backlash in 2022. But
it didn't
I
hold.
thought, if nothing else happens, if Donald Trump doesn't do anything else, but they overturn Roe v. Wade and they're taking credit for it, in my mind, that was enough to win the fucking election pretty easily. And fucking A, it did. It wasn't. I mean, what was it that people just kind of accepted? Maybe Mitch McConnell's right. You can do anything to anybody, give it a little time, and they get used to it. I mean, they took fucking civil rights away from women. They put women in danger. Women were dying, and that wasn't enough to not vote fucking Republican. Jesus Christ, this country, the people in this country, the voters, fucking disappointing.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of hoping that the more this goes on, the longer it gets kicked down the road, that, the more it gets closer to the elections, because it's probably going to take something like this. Or if they pass it now, by the time the midterms come around, they're going to feel it, just in time. And I really don't, I really think, the Republicans look at what happened with the Obamacare, but the thing with Obamacare and the Democrats lost a lot of their seats is because they were actually helping people. Now it's like they try to take it away and people love it. Maybe they think that people take their Medicare away and they love it. I'm betting that's not the case.
Yeah, logic and common sense would say that's true. But I've said before, everybody said, you said Kamala would win. You said Kamala would win. You were wrong.
You
Yeah,
should
I
have.
was wrong. But
Yeah.
I was using common sense and logic, just taking a look at all the factors. And that's when on November 5th, I realized fucking common sense and logic doesn't matter in this shit. That's why I'm saying, in terms of this bill, part of me, I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want to see people die, but I want this fucking done. That's why I'm wondering if this just has to crash in a steaming pile of shit in order for any change to happen. I hate to say it because it could affect people I know, people you know, people we all know, and it
Us.
could be painful, but we can't we can't keep this going another 10 years. The
Yep.
country can't tolerate it. And people deserve better than that. I mean, some people think Kamala winning would have been worse than Donald Trump winning. And here's why. For political reasons, that's true. But then MAGA would be under on the underneath still doing the shit they're doing. People are suggesting that now that they've had their chance, they got the Republicans in the House and the Senate and the presidency. This is the chance that they crash and burn and we can finally be done with them. We might not have been done with them if Kamala had won. Now I'd prefer Kamala had won for many reasons, but the point is that what we got to do? We got to slay this fucking dragon. We got to kill it. We got to gut it. We got to throw it in the fucking dump before we're done with it.
Well, that's what a lot of people are saying, that it was only almost better if he would have won in 2020 because we'd be coming out of the end of it. I don't
Right.
agree with that because I think we'd be even, if he would have won re-election, he'd be more emboldened. And I just think that, maybe it is, maybe, it was a godsend to have, Biden in between that because he was able to stop some of the bleeding. And we can look at Biden's term and we can like know what he did. Biden got a lot of shit done when he had, he didn't have both houses.
Yeah.
So Biden will be the one that we look at to say, hey, this is how somebody did to prepare this. And there's going to be a lot of work to get done. And Democrats are going to have to really stick together on this to fix all the shit Trump did, because there'll be the Republicans will still be out there, maybe a name only, but they'll be blaming once it starts hitting all this shit, it may not hit till the next administration. And they're trying to go through all this shit to fix it. But they got to stand strong and they got to do it. And I think that's maybe why we need an AOC or somebody that far to the left to correct all this shit that was done. Because what they've been doing is just horrific.
Well, I'll tell you this, if nothing else, if Donald Trump would have won in 2020, we would have 2 million people dead of COVID.
Yeah.
Because everybody says, well, he came up with the vaccine. He didn't do shit. He put people in charge of doing the vaccine, and it did happen while he was in office. But guess what? Well, he was in office and the vaccine is ready. Nobody getting the vaccine because he had no fucking way to distribute it. Soon as
Yep.
Joe Biden got in, he started getting it moving and distributing it, and that's why COVID was, put down essentially to whatever extent. But Donald Trump is a fuck up. We would have had 2 million people die of COVID. We would have been in this mess. Everybody wants to blame Tim Walz and the Democrats for shutting shit down during COVID. It's Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had just did the job he was supposed to do in the beginning, it wouldn't have been as bad as it was. We wouldn't have had to shut things down. And this is where I always argue with Republicans. Oh, Joe Biden and Tim Walz. Fuck you. If Donald Trump had just done his fucking job, we wouldn't have had to go through all this shit. And so we needed that break, that rest, or some way to kind of recover or recuperate from what Donald Trump had done in the first term. And we're going to need that again after this one's over, whenever that may be. But to think to think Donald Trump's going to do the right thing or the smart thing, that's just pie in the sky shit. He won't. He not only will do bad things, he'll do it so poorly that it'll be even more fucked up.
Well, look what he's doing now with his RFK Jr. I mean, you better hope we don't have something like COVID, or it'll kill a lot more than 1 million people. Because
Yeah,
all the experts are gone. The Fauci's are gone. They tried to blame him for that. They try to blame the doctors on it, not the where it came from, or try to prevent this. And we probably wouldn't have if Hillary would have won in 16, we probably never would have had COVID, or it wouldn't have been as that bad because Biden or Obama and Biden started that was that pandemic commission or whatever to kind of look out
right.
for this kind of shit. So, I'll when people say, well, is Waltz and Biden for shutting everything down? Well, I say if it wasn't for Trump, COVID may not have been as bad if we had adults in
I
charge.
agree.
But now what we're going into now is that we got a fucking nut job that swims in sewage water, who, is okay with, heroin, but not a COVID vaccine. Thank goodness we haven't done it yet, and thank goodness a hurricane hasn't really hit. It's almost like, Trump's getting a pass on this shit, but that shit's coming. There'll be a hurricane in the Gulf that'll hit some red states. There'll be a pandemic, or maybe not quite a pandemic, but a disease that'll, break out. And it's like you said, everything he does is fuck up. And when he took over for Biden, he had a great economy. He could have just coasted like he did kind of in the first term. But no, he had to freaking tear everything up. He had to tear, he had to, in the first term, he tore up that agreement he had with Iran, Obama had with Iran, and all these MAGA. I can't believe they gave Iran so much money. Well, now they're talking about a deal. It's pretty much the same fucking thing. The only difference is it's got Trump's name on it. I want to see MAGA get all pissed off how they did that with Obama. It's ridiculous. But whoever wins re-election, if it's a Republican or a Democrat, I believe it's going to be a Democrat. But I think it's going to have to be I think MAGA will be even more weakened up, and I think that we're seeing how with MAGA's in charge, how fucked up it is. And I gotta believe that some Republicans are, they regret their votes. You hear it all the time. I think there's more of that, and you don't hear the media talking about it because they're in bed with MAGA. They're in bed with the billionaires. You want to watch something, listen to, Midas Touch, listen to Rational Boomer. Hell, watch BBC. That's the real story, not the shit you get here in the States.
No, what's going on here in the media is just absolutely fucking appalling. And I'm talking about MSNBC, CNN, all this shit. I
Except for
see some
Lawrence.
of them. Yeah, I do like Lawrence. Lawrence,
Yeah.
my wife loves watching Lawrence because he always starts the show off. Well, the stupidest man to ever enter the Oval Office did this
Yeah.
today. He is absolutely brilliant in what he does. And I can only think the reason he gets away with it on MSNBC is because he must have huge ratings. And they don't want to fuck with him because he's worth too much money to them. But he is, there's a motherfucker that could start a YouTube channel and probably get rich. He could probably get rich doing it and not have to put up with bullshit. But he seems to be doing whatever he's whatever he's doing and getting away with it. But
It's probably a good
John,
thing too. He's not a woman of color either, like Joy Reid was. So he doesn't, that you kind of got to think about that too. So, it's sad what they did to her because she was good too. But yeah, Lawrence O'Donnell's he's a treasure and he's somebody that doesn't back down, and we need more people like him out there.
absolutely. He's not afraid of Donald Trump. He fucking taunts Donald Trump,
Yeah, he
hoping
does.
he will do something. But you know what? You never see him come after Lawrence O'Donnell, ever.
He tweets about him sometimes because during that when he had his trial in New York, he was there, and when Lawrence was talking about it, how he like looked right up to him and didn't back down. So yeah, Lawrence is good, man.
Well, Lawrence doesn't tolerate bullies, and that's what makes it a problem for Donald Trump. He doesn't want somebody to stand up to him. He wants somebody to cower, and like what we have with this UVA college thing. The guy who was the president, uh, I don't know if he said, I'm tired of this shit. He was going to retire next year anyway and just walks away. This is what Donald Trump depends on, calling people in Congress saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. And then they do it his way.
Yeah.
That's how he's lived his whole life. And not until somebody steps up to him and slaps the taste out of his mouth and says, fuck you, that's when we see the Donald Trump demise because he doesn't have the courage. He's not very confrontational in person. He's great on True Social. He's great talking behind the scenes, but when he's in front of somebody, he um, he acts real nice and friendly. It's kind of like what Bill Maher said. I had dinner with him. He's really kind of friendly. Doesn't matter if he's friendly. What he is to the public and what he's doing to the public, I don't care what he's like behind the scenes. He's a fucking psychopath. And he knows how to play people too. And clearly he plays a lot of people. Um, I don't know if you heard there was some digital tax that Canada was going to do. And Donald Trump says, okay, then I'm not talking about our tariffs and stuff. And then Canada came out and says, well, we'll rescind the digital tax so we can continue with talks. Well, what the fuck is going to happen with the tariffs? On July 9th, the 90-day thing is up. What are you going to do then, Donnie? You going to
Extended.
crash the economy again? You going to fuck
Extended.
up the stock market?
Yeah, I'm sure Joseph Stalin was probably nice at dinners he had too. I mean, I'm sure some people would have said that, not the Bolsheviks, of course, but the yeah, he's a bully and he goes mostly after women. I mean, you saw him go after AOC and Jasmine Crockett, but like he won't go after Lawrence, he won't go after Greg Popovich, but he'll go after a woman, and that's the only people he's been able to beat is two women. I mean, my God, I mean that totally defeats everything MAGA does. You know what I mean? It's just he's just a walking contradiction. And he just you need to stand up to him and get this shit done. And that's why, I think Gavin Newsom was so strong there because he went up there to the tarmac and, got in his face, shook his hand, stood toe to toe with him. That's what we fucking need. I mean, besides, Bernie and AOC and Jasmine Crockett, we need all them Democrats to start doing that. We don't care about strongly worded letters. We don't care about, going after a mayor in New York candidate and we don't know what he stands for. Like I said, we gotta start fighting that and start standing up to that kind of shit. Jamie Raskins. The Democrats have a big bench out there. And I know that it's come out that, the media is portraying saying that JD Vance is the strongest one now, either side that he was. That's bullshit. He's not going to carry the MAGA vote because I think a lot of MAGAs are going to be, tired of it. And I wouldn't be surprised, I still think that JD Vance, once he sees Trump at a weakening, he'll turn on that motherfucker. Because that's what Trump would do to him. So I just,
Absolutely.
I see that happening. And I think when he does that, even though Trump's weakened, I don't think MAGA is going to forgive him for that. He
No,
may get the White House on the 25th Amendment, but he'll lose MAGA. And that's what the Republicans are so scared of is when Trump's gone, I think their Republican voters are gone.
I've been thinking about the 25th Amendment thing, and people talk about it a lot. I don't know that it's going to go that way because the 25th Amendment typically has been used for a temporary thing. You know, you could say he's crazy, he's this, he's that, and then the president can come back and say, I'm better now, and then pop back in. I don't know that the 25th Amendment is the best way to do it. Impeachment is probably an easier way than the 25th Amendment, but then you have to get the Republicans thinking straight, and we might be a ways from that. I think the best thing for the Republican Party to get rid of Donald Trump is to choke on a fucking Big Mac because then they can say, "Oh, we love Trump. He's gone now," and be relieved and put JD Vance in there because he's the only choice. Unless Donald Trump is getting paranoid about JD Vance, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to get rid of JD Vance and bring somebody else in because he feels that pressure. You hear Elon Musk talking about getting rid of Trump and putting in JD Vance and the tech bro thing. He's a paranoid motherfucker. He may be looking at JD as a fucking enemy, and JD seems to try to separate himself. I would say he is Trump's enemy, not to our benefit. But once Trump's gone, I think the power of MAGA is pretty much gone too, because there is no leader to fill
No.
that position.
Oh, you're not going to vote for Eric? You don't think he has a chance?
Eric,
Eric
Eric,
Trump.
no,
He
no,
said that,
Eric
oh,
or
I can see, a dynasty with us. But I don't think that, I know you talked about it before, but Republicans aren't going to impeach Trump. They're running out of time. It's going to take the Democrats winning the Senate, winning the House to do it. And if they were going to do something like this, I think they would have done it already. I think Trump's showed us who he is. And I think if they're bending over this much for this bill to get it passed, trying every trick they're subservient to Trump. They'll never impeach him. It's not going to happen on their watch. That's
yeah.
just my 2 cents. If he gets impeached, it'll be when the Democrats win both houses. But the Democrats, when they win both houses, they need to talk about term limits. They need to talk about a lot of shit. They need to get done while they have it because as both we know, power's fleeting and you don't have it very long. If there's, they need to set up a bunch of rules that somebody like another Trump Jr. comes along, they can't do the same shit he's done.
Well, if you want,
They gotta give teeth to some of these committees and stuff like that. Will that bite them in the ass if a Republican ever takes over? Maybe, but they got to get some teeth to these committees because these subpoenas, they don't respect them.
yeah, the thing about it is I don't see any of that happening until we have a youth movement within Congress.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
very telling that this Mondami in New York, um, what tells me you should vote for Mondami is that the Republicans are terrified of this motherfucker.
Exactly.
They are terrified of him. They want to try to deport him or take away his citizenship or do
Chip.
all. They are fucking terrified. Now they won't be able to do anything about that. But what's the troubling part is there's a lot of Democrats that are just as terrified of
Yep.
Mondami. But if you want change in this country, he may not be the absolute answer for the mayor of New York, but he's the start of the trend.
Yep.
If he's successful in New York, I think we're already seeing younger people running for office. And I think that's what we need. We need to flush out the old turds and
Yeah.
bring in young people and let them determine their own destiny. But until we start getting that change, we're not going to get anywhere with the Democrats because we've got people in the Democratic Party that aren't as bad as Republicans, but have some similar problems. The money thing. I heard one rep talking about APAC, and he says everybody takes APAC. Democrats and Republicans. That's a problem because now Israel controls everything that we're doing in this country. Now, I'm fine with Israel. I don't like their leadership. I think he's a fucking terrorist, and so do the courts. But until we make those changes, like you say, term limits. The only way we're going to get term limits is if we get a younger crowd of people that understand what's right as opposed to what's expeditious for them. Because right now, nobody's going to vote for term limits. Nobody's going to cut off APAC or big funding. We talk about Citizens United and how money's in Congress and how the Republicans love it. Motherfucker, so do the Democrats because they got the same deal. The money in Congress, we can't expect Congress to stop it because they love it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have a generation come in there that, that aren't up there as career politicians. It's gonna have to be a youth movement to where they do their 2, 4, 6, 7 years and then move on with their life. It was never meant to be this way. You were meant to have a
No,
job and go on. And what gets me about it is that of course, we have one for the presidency, but we don't have one for Congress. That makes no fucking sense to me.
no.
Because, if anything, I think a president should actually have, more because, they're the figurehead and they're actually voted on by America. They're not voted on just by the states, if that makes sense.
Right.
But, 8 years, I think, is enough as well for president. But if anybody else, because, the president's voted on by America and, I mean, but then again, we don't want to, an FDR where you're in like your fourth term and you die in office. I mean, if the best way to do that too is get younger, have somebody to where they go on and they run their thing and they go back to their job, you know what I mean? Or, something like that. But the David Hogg thing, I think, is gaining more traction. I think it's more popular outside the Beltway, so to speak, with, the voters than it is with the party, of course, establishment because what they're doing, I mean, what they did to him was wrong. I mean, he was elected and he won. And they had another one, took him out of there. Well, he's on to something right now because if he scares that many people, he's on to something. If your politicians are scared of something, then that's something that you're going in the right direction on.
And the Democrats fucked up by kicking out David Hogg.
Yeah, they did.
They just gave him more power. David Hogg's pack is behind Mondami, and
Mhm.
he won in a big way.
Yeah,
That's suggesting a trend. And then when you consider the fact that in 2028, the word is that the majority of the voters will be millennials and Gen Z, just by virtue of the number of voters, it's going to cause us to go younger if the younger candidates are available. And the Democrats don't want him on Dami because then it's going to take away from the old fucking guard that's going to do whatever they've always done. I think we're at a moment in time when we are going to start seeing a youth movement because the people who are old in Congress are just too fucking old. The vast majority of the voters will be younger people. I think both Democrats and Republicans realize we're in for a huge shift, and it's about fucking time. I hate the Republicans for the horrible things they do, but I'm just as frustrated with the Democrats. Some of these Democrats. I mean, there's good ones too, of course, but this is we. I said one time we should take the Republicans and Democrats and put them in a Hunger Games and see who's the strongest and the fittest that last.
yeah. You don't want to bring back the duels, like if the person that gets the most votes is president, the one that comes in second gets to be the vice president. So you'll have a Democrat and Republican up there. That ought to make things interesting. But
That would make it interesting, but yeah, I don't think anybody would agree to that. That makes no sense. We'd have assassinations
yeah.
and party shifts like that.
I think what you're going to have with the Republican Party, and I think I saw a lot of this when I was kind of growing up in it. I think you're going to see a lot of you're going to see a lot of you're going to see Republicans break up into, you're going to have the moderates and you're going to have the extreme, and you're going to have that David Duke, right wing, Charlie Kirk, Republican there, that party, the remnants of the Tea Party, the racist side of it that'll never accept America as it is. They think Abraham Lincoln's a traitor. And you're going to have, I think the Democratic Party, it may not be called the Democratic Party, but I think you're going to get a lot of the disenfranchised Republicans in that party that maybe not agree with everything, but know that something's got to be done. But I see the Republicans splitting in two. You're going to have like almost a white supremacist part because there's a lot in that right now. And there's a lot of people that support that way of life. They claim to love Jesus, but they hate the Jews. Go figure. I mean
Yeah.
that's the what I see because I see a lot, and there's a big right wing portion of this country that's that's very racist. It's the old Confederacy that never died, and I just really think that Republican, that's what it makes up. I mean, we see them marching all the time. I mean, they've always been there. They were in the KKK, they were the Klan, and that part of the party's always been there. And unfortunately, yeah, a lot of younger folks are like that too because they were raised that way. I hate to say it, But I think if anything, I mean, Trump's a he's a cult of personality. He's a once in a lifetime thing to where he brings all that together because he's got shades of that. I mean, he pretty much, has that. He has the evangelical Christians along with, the white part of it. And when he's gone, I don't think there's anybody else that'll represent both those things. So I think the Republican Party, as we know it now, will be gone when he is gone.
I think so too. I think people always say we gotta have a third party. We basically have four parties now.
Yeah.
We have the radical right, the right of center, the left of center, and the far left.
Yep.
And the problem is the radical right people um, will vote for a radical,
Yeah.
but the right of center people will vote for the radical just because that's their fucking team. Not
Yep.
for what's right, not for what's best, not what's good for them. They go Republicans against Democrats. And that's one of the things that I think we have to try to get away from if we can. I don't know. They've done a good job creating that division between Democrats and Republicans. There is no negotiation anymore, which means why have a fucking Congress if there's no negotiation?
Right.
If our Supreme Court doesn't rule on rule of law, what's the point of having a Supreme Court? They have no credibility. Our entire system has become tainted, and our entire system is not working. It's broken. So there has to be some dramatic changes if we hope to survive.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna have to come at an impasse. Are we gonna continue this way, or are we gonna form a new government? I mean, there was that saying that all democracies only last about 250 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, not everything's the same, and I don't think we're as free as we were even 6 months ago when Trump won, because he's trying everything right now to see as far as he can get, and he's getting away with a lot of it. He's lost a lot, but he's also gotten away with a lot of it too. I mean, you're supposed to have checks and balances of this, and he just owns the Supreme Court, and it's not obvious. It's very obvious, especially with Amy Barrett Cohen, who they thought that would, she was, kind of the voice of reason along with the liberals, but it's like she's almost going back because she saw the heat from MAGA she was getting. She almost, did more about that.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to Obama, with term limits too, trying to get Ruth Bader Ginsburg to step down, but she wouldn't step down. And I think big reason we're in this mess is because she didn't step down and allow him, when he had both chambers, to nominate somebody else. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a lot like Joe Biden. We
yeah,
appreciate all they did, um, and we appreciate all the things they accomplished while they were in office, whether it be Ruth or Joe Biden. But either their ego or something forced them to stay too long, and in the process, they fuck the cause. I can't say anything about uh, bad about RBG, but she should have left. She
yep.
was elderly, and clearly she had some health problems. For the good of the country, she should have moved on, and we would have got another Democratic or liberal. But for whatever reason, she thought she could tough it out. Maybe she thought she would last longer than she did. Maybe it was ego. I don't know what it is. Same with Joe Biden. After the 2020 election, he just said, I'm done after this. I'm going to do my shit, and you guys figure it out after that. I've done as much as I can. But he said, Trump's running again, so I'm the only one that can beat Trump. Well,
And I
you
think he
did
was
beat
right.
Trump the first time. Well, he was
I think,
probably right, but
yeah,
time is a bitch, man.
yeah, it is. I think he was right about that, and he should have maybe, stepped down or whatever. But I mean, once you get up there, you almost gotta have a big ass ego to be president. I mean, to think
Yeah.
that you're the smartest guy in the room. I mean, we all know Trump thinks that way, but we look at Joe Biden a little bit differently. But yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I mean, we just got to quit playing by the same rules the Republicans do, because they don't play by the rules. I mean, when it
Yeah.
comes up there and we do say we do get the House and Senate next time, and for some reason they haven't impeached Trump and he tries to get a Supreme Court through, fuck no. We're not going to let that shit happen. We're going to make it wait until the term's over. They need to do
Well,
the same kind of shit that McConnell did.
yeah. And there's got to be at some point when people realize their own mortality.
Yeah.
I've had an easy time of it. Like I talk to people my age all the time. They live in their big house still and whatever. Go, I like working in the yard. No, you don't, motherfucker. That's hard work and you kill yourself out there.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I could mow my lawn, I could dig a ditch, I could do all that stuff, but I'm 65 now. So I bought a fucking condo. Let somebody younger do it. And you've got to be able to realize what your limitations are and not assume you can do everything. And life gets so much easier when you just realize it and you pass it off to the younger folks and you do what you can do the best you can. I can't mow the lawn anymore. I'm not going to dig a garden anymore, but I can sit here for an hour and a half and talk some shit. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, I kind of learned ahead of you, Mike. When I was 40, I bought my first home, which was a condo, and I have a little bitty backyard, and that's all I got to mow. So I fucking learned that thing. I didn't like yard work either. I know that.
Well,
My dad made me do that shit as a kid. I fucking says, you know what? When I fucking get old, I'm gonna hire some kid to mow my fucking lawn like they do me now. So yeah, I learned that lesson many years ago too. So yeah. Yeah, and you people that are retired, I mean, you think about it, man, they drop dead in their fucking yard all the time. They what
I
shoveling
know.
the snow, and we don't have that down here, but cutting the grass. Motherfucker, there's so many things that can kill you. Don't fucking help it. You know what I mean? I mean, you can get eaten by a fucking shark, you get hit by a fucking lightning bolt. Don't let a little physical excursion, put you under. You got the right idea about that. But
Well, I think politicians, when you see somebody like Chuck Grassley or somebody working till they're 95. Their whole identity is what they do for a
yeah,
living. They're going to do it until they die. When I turned 60 years old, my wife retired. I'd already retired, even though I was still kind of working, but it was on my own time. When I turned 60 and my wife turned 60, I said to her, "Look, if we're lucky, we live 80 years. After all this shit we've done all our life, the struggling, the trials and tribulations, the toiling and doing all this stuff, a lot of fucking hard work. Don't
yep,
we at least deserve for the next 20 years of our life or less that we can actually move? Don't it shouldn't there be a time when we just relax and enjoy life a little bit and play with our grandkids and travel and do that stuff? That's what I don't understand about politicians being 100. Are you so sucked into the power and the ego because you already got enough fucking money? Why not just relax, let other people handle it, and enjoy the remainder of your life? But I had a father-in-law who worked till he died. And he had money. Why do that? Why not spend some time enjoying life?
well, I retire in less than 6 years at 60 from my full pension. And will I be able to live on that? No, but I'll probably supplement my income with something else and do something about it. But I won't have to work full time, and I can probably do something remote. Hell, I'm even talking about. I got a buddy of mine that he's talking about. He's got some money, and he's talking about buying a place down in Mexico. And I said,
Yeah.
well, you're not going to be down there all the time. I'll live down there all year round, and when you come here, I'll come up to the States or whatever. But I'll live down there and keep an eye on it for you. I ain't above that shit. I could live on my pension down in Mexico. But I
Oh
mean,
hell yeah.
I'm definitely when. And if you're still doing the boomer in, 5, 6 years, we'll just have to do remote from Mexico. I'll be down there on Cabo Beach, hanging out with Sammy Hagar. It'll be like 90 something by then. And we'll have a couple of cocktails on the beach. But yeah, I've made up my mind. I'm leaving. I'm gonna get out of this state because people are like, "Well, where are you gonna go?" I said California. They laugh at me and they go, "Well, that's the cost of living." I go, "Not necessarily. I've done my research. You can find a nice little town in like California. It's not as high as the cities." And it's a
Right.
little bit more, but it's something you can make happen. Hell, go on to Mexico, and working remote. I mean, people do that shit all the time. So, I mean, all you got to do is teach English. I mean, there's more ways to do it, but I'd rather be doing something like that or getting my pension because I worked hard for that pension. And pensions are, a thing of the past, and I'm,
Absolutely.
lucky, they're coming because they're trying to destroy that shit all the time. And I want to get out of here before they do take it away from me. I can have that and move on with my life. So yeah, I'm not going to be working past 60 either. I mean, I'll be working, but it won't be what I call work. It'll be doing something, remotely maybe.
Yeah. I mean, technically I still work, but this is it.
Yeah.
I started doing this in 2020 and people kind of laughed. I said, well, no, I'll make a few bucks and we'll get a few listeners and it'll be fun. It's what I know how to do. So we'll just do it. And
And
here
you
we
enjoy
are
it.
4 years later, 5 years later. Um, it's my people now accept it around me. When I first started doing it, people said, "Ah, fucking crazy motherfucker." But now they accept that this is legit, and I make a couple bucks,
Yeah.
and I get to do it. I could at my age I could be doing worse things. I could
Yeah.
be going out and taking my pension and hanging out at the strip joints, which sounds pitiful, but I think you always, no matter what you do, when you retire, you got to always be chasing something and always have goals. That's the way you stay young, and that's the way you maintain your mental acuity. That's why I tell my wife, I said, if nothing else, by going on here and doing what I do every day, I'm at least exercising my mind and keeping it straight and not sitting on the couch watching Wheel of Fortune with a beer, That's a sure way to end up dead.
Yeah, I think it was funny you were telling me that story, how your kids were just so horrified that, man, our dad's a influencer. And it's like that's what their generation does. And no, you got a boomer up there who's an influencer. Oh my God, anything can happen in this country. America, this though you can't do anything in this country, you still can't. You can become an influencer and a boomer at the same time. So yeah.
I think to a certain extent, at least with my oldest son, he's a little embarrassed by it. And I get it, man. I get it. I get it.
Is he
But
embarrassed or just jealous? I think maybe a little jealous. Could
uh,
be.
uh, I don't know.
You're, you're supposed to be
He's young.
like you're supposed to be they probably expect you to be quiet with that beer watching Wheel of Fortune. That's what they do. They don't want you, being a TikTok sensation that you had become.
Oh, not hardly a sensation, but I don't think either of them are jealous of me. They both have great lives and great families, and I just think they think, well, you should just fucking retire. Why,
Yeah.
shut up.
You're not
Be
having
grandpa.
to
And I
get
am
up
grandpa,
early.
but I'm a different kind of grandpa.
No. You're not having to get up early and punch a clock at least. You make your own hours, do your own thing. Hell, we're recording like you said, we're recording I'm off this week, luckily for my job, but I mean, you're off every day. You get to do what you want.
That's the one thing about being retired. You often forget what day it is.
Yeah.
Because I do TikToks and I do podcasts every day. So every day is the same for me. But every day is kind of like a Saturday. I mean, I got up this morning. What did I have to do? My wife wakes me up and said, I'm going out with my friends on the boat. Would you take the boat, get some gas, and park it over by the closer dock? I said, sure. So I go out and do that. And I come back, I sit down with you and talk for an hour and a half. And then I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do the rest of the day. Probably some TikToks. It keeps me busy, but I'm not breaking my back doing this shit. I tell you that right now.
That's why they always ask me. It's like, well, you can make so much money working in the real world, so to speak. I was like, I like my days off. I like my days off. Yeah, I can make more money, but I'll tell you what, I've never been this happy, having those days off and the flexibility. So, it's not always about money. You got to be happy where you're at too.
Yeah, I've had both situations now, where I've made a few bucks and the quality of life was limited because you didn't see anybody, you didn't talk to anybody, you're working your ass off. And now I make less money, but I have less expenses because I back down off everything and I'm comfortable and I'm quality of life is far more important than how much money you make. I've made
And
a fair amount of money doing things. My dad made a lot of money, but without the quality of life, what's the point?
I agree with you.
It's just people worry too fucking much about having all the toys in the big house and all that stuff. You know, my wife and I live in a condo. It's nowhere near as big as our house was. More than enough room for what we're doing. We're going
Same
down to
here.
Georgia to an even smaller condo, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck it. We're not sitting in the condo. We're going out and doing shit. That's the important thing. Well, Jace, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I appreciate you coming here at a weird time to do this. It's going to help me while we're on the road trip, have a podcast in the can, as it were, and be able to sleep in the car. Because my wife likes driving better than I do. And mainly because she's a control freak. But she'll say, well, you're a terrible driver. I go, well, I've been driving since I'm 16 and I'm 65 now, almost 50 years. I don't have many tickets, not certainly none in the last 30 years, and I haven't had any accidents. So how bad could I be? It's
Yeah.
not that I'm a bad driver, it's that I'm not her and she wants the control because she's nervous about driving. So I'll sit back, we'll drive a little ways and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not big on road trips because of all the hurdles you can run across. My
Yeah.
wife is dead set. We got to do road trips. We got to do road trips. Oh boy.
I'm with your
Oh,
wife. I'm one of those weirdos that likes to drive. Like, I mean, I can go to a new, I can go, like, I'm going up to Ohio at the end of August for the UT Ohio State game. And I've already volunteered to drive. I don't know anything about it, never been up there, but I love to drive. I love to get out on the road. But I can see people that don't like to drive either. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we could get this in the can. Well, I guess some people might be listening to this on the can, so goes
yeah,
hand
yeah, no
in
kidding. No
hand.
kidding. Well, I appreciate it immensely. And those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.